For 18 years, I was a single mother, fighting to give my daughter, Chloe, the world, and it was on her wedding day that I heard her future husband tell his friends, "Marrying that disgusting sow of a daughter is the price I have to pay to get my hands on that fortune." In that instant, something inside me shattered. I decided right then that he would never see a single penny of what I had built, even if it meant destroying my only daughter's dream of a perfect wedding. But before we get into it, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and drop a comment below, letting me know where you're watching from. We love to see how far our stories travel. The clock on the wall read 10:13 a.m. as I finished adjusting my mother of the bride dress. My daughter, Chloe, was getting married in less than 5 hours, and everything had to be flawless. 18 years as a single mom had taught me to be meticulous, and this day would be no exception. I had saved every cent to give my only child the wedding of her dreams. The hotel where the ceremony was being held was luxurious, but still modest by the standards of Julian, the groom. He came from a wealthy family. Though they had recently fallen on hard financial times, I never mentioned it to Chloe, but I had noticed how his interest in her seemed to spike right after our small baking business began to take off. In the last 3 years, we had gone from a makeshift kitchen in our home to one of the largest distributors of artisanal desserts in the region. "Mom, can you grab my bouquet from the groom's prep room?" "I left it there when I went to drop off his gift," Chloe asked. While the makeup artist was putting the final touches on her, I nodded with a smile. My daughter was radiant, her eyes sparkling with anticipation. She had always dreamed of a fairy tale, and I wanted so desperately to believe she had found her prince. I walked down the hotel corridor, trying not to wrinkle my dress. The grand ballroom was already being decorated with the white and gold flower arrangements I had handpicked myself. I approached the suite where Julian and his groomsmen were getting ready. The door was slightly ajar, and I could hear boisterous male laughter from within. I was just about to knock when I heard Julian's voice, clear and mocking, "Just a few more hours, boys." Then I signed those partnership papers, get my hands on her bakery, and we're set. Marrying that disgusting sow of a daughter is a small price to pay to get back everything my father lost in the market. I froze. My legs felt weak, and my heart seemed to stop beating. I instinctively stepped back from the door, leaning against the cool wall to keep from collapsing. "But you're gonna have to sleep with her, man." A voice I recognized as his best man, Brandon, chimed in. "Nothing a bottle of tequila can't solve," Julian shot back, followed by a round of laughter. "She's so pathetic, she actually believes it when I tell her I love her. And her mom? That clueless old bat working day and night at that bakery. She has no idea that in 6 months we're selling the whole thing and she'll be right back in the gutter where she belongs." The laughter grew louder. I felt my blood boil, my breath catching in my throat. My vision went dark for a second, and I had to physically restrain myself from storming into that room and personally ending that creep's ambitions by yanking his perfect teeth out one by one. "And when she starts crying over every little thing, she looks like a beached whale," Julian continued, his cruelty knowing no bounds. I couldn't take any more. With trembling hands and a shattered heart, I silently moved away. Chloe, my girl, my pride and joy, was about to marry a monster who saw her as nothing more than a means to an end. I walked back to the room where she was getting ready, empty-handed. My mind was racing, trying to process what I had just heard. How could I tell her? Would she even believe me? Or would she think I was just trying to sabotage her wedding? "Mom, are you okay? Where's the bouquet?" Chloe asked, immediately noticing my expression. It was locked. "I'll go ask for the key," I lied, trying to buy myself a few precious moments. I stepped out again, closing the door behind me and resting my forehead against the cold wood. Silent tears streamed down my face. I had to make a decision, and I had to make it fast. I pulled out my phone and called David, my accountant and a friend of many years. He was the only person I trusted completely with financial matters. "David, I need you at the Grand Palm Hotel immediately, and bring those contingency documents we drafted last year." Yes, the emergency ones. No, I can't explain now. It's urgent. He agreed without question. That's the kind of friendship we had. Next, I called my lawyer. If Julian thought he was going to lay a single finger on what I had built with my own sweat and tears, he was sorely mistaken. I had very little time, but I was fiercely determined. I took a deep breath, wiped away my tears, and walked back into Chloe's room, this time with a steely resolve in my heart. As a mother, I was facing two equally painful choices: destroy my daughter's wedding dream by revealing the truth, or let her walk into the trap of a man who only wanted to use her. I watched her in the mirror as the stylist finished her hair. Chloe was smiling, completely oblivious to the storm that was brewing. Her lace dress was simple and elegant, exactly as she'd always wanted. I had saved for years for this day, working endless nights in the bakery. "You look so beautiful," I said, my voice choked with emotion. "Mom, don't start crying yet. You'll ruin your makeup," she joked, never suspecting the real reason for my tears. What she didn't know was that in the next few hours, I was going to take drastic measures that would change our lives forever. The determined woman who had built a business from nothing was about to show her claws. David arrived in record time, a black briefcase clutched in his hand. We met in the hotel lobby in a discreet corner near the emergency staircase. "Eleanor, what happened?" he asked, his face etched with worry. I told him everything I had heard, every vile word that had come out of Julian's mouth. David's face went pale, and then I saw a rage grow in his eyes. "That miserable excuse for a man," he muttered. "What are we going to do?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "We implement the contingency plan, not later, not tomorrow, right now." The contingency plan was something we had drafted when the business, Sweet Flourishes, started to expand. It was a way to protect the company if anything ever happened to me. I never imagined we'd be using it to stop a con artist's son-in-law from taking control. "Eleanor, are you sure?" David confirmed. "This will completely block Julian from having any access to the company's assets, but it also means that Chloe won't be able to touch the principal capital until the terms we've set are met." I finished for him. "Yes, I'm sure. It's the only way to protect her." David opened the briefcase and we began reviewing the documents. We made calls to the notary and the bank, using our connections to expedite procedures that would normally take weeks. Within 2 hours, Sweet Flourishes no longer belonged to me personally. It was now owned by a holding company, a corporate trust that I controlled. Any significant financial decision would require my signature, and that of at least 2 of the trustees I appointed. David and my sister, Sarah Chloe, would remain a beneficiary, receiving her monthly allowance, but she couldn't sell, transfer, or use the company as collateral for loans. Most importantly, her future husband would have 0 rights to the business, regardless of whatever marital property agreement they chose. While David was finalizing the last of the procedures online, I went back to see Chloe. She was having a light lunch with her bridesmaids, laughing and sharing childhood stories. My heart ached. Would this be her last moment of genuine, untainted happiness? I hesitated at the door, just watching her. It was my duty to protect her, even if it meant hurting her deeply. But how could I tell her the truth without destroying her special day? How could I prove what I had heard? "Mrs. Hayes?" The voice of Brenda, the wedding planner, brought me back to reality. "Is everything all right? The musicians need guidance on when to start." "Yes, I'm on my way," I replied automatically. When I returned to the lobby, David handed me a folder with the final documents. "It's done," he said. "I signed as a witness. Sarah sent her digital power of attorney. The asset transfer is complete. Julian can't touch a thing, even if he marries Chloe." I sighed, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders, only to be replaced by another, much heavier one. I had protected our legacy, but what about my daughter's heart? Eleanor. Eleanor. David gripped my hands. "You have to tell her, before the ceremony." "I know," I whispered, But what if she doesn't believe me? What if she chooses to stay with him anyway? Then she'll do it knowing the truth. She's an adult. She needs to make her own choice. Just then, I saw Julian and his groomsmen entering the lobby. They were laughing, adjusting their ties, completely oblivious to my presence. The rage returned with full force. I'm telling her now, I decided. When I entered the room, Chloe was alone, already dressed and ready. She looked like a princess in her white gown, the delicate veil framing her face. She smiled when she saw me, but her smile vanished when she saw my expression. "Mom, what's wrong? Did something happen?" I sat beside her, taking her hands in mine. "Chloe, my love, I need to tell you something very difficult." I took a deep breath, searching for the right words. "Today, when I went to get your bouquet, I heard Julian talking to his groomsmen. I told her everything, every cruel word, every mocking laugh. As I spoke, I watched her face transform, first with disbelief, then confusion, and finally a pain so profound I thought my own heart would break along with hers. "No," she shook her head, pulling her hands away. "He wouldn't do that. You must have misheard. Honey, I know it's hard to believe, but—" "No, Mom," her voice rose. "You've never liked him. You always thought he was with me for the money. Chloe, I heard him with my own ears," I insisted, keeping my voice calm. "He called you horrible things. He said marrying you was just a small price to pay. No, no, no. Why are you doing this? Today? Of all days?" She stood up, backing away from me. "Because I love you, honey, and I would rather have you hate me now than find out the truth when it's too late." She turned to the mirror, trying to stifle her sobs. "I want to talk to him," she decided, grabbing her phone. "I'm going to ask him directly. Chloe, he'll just deny it." "It's my wedding," she shouted, a rare outburst from her. My daughter was always so sweet and composed. My life. I get to decide what to do. She was right. It was her life, her choice. I had done my part by protecting our assets and telling her the truth. The rest was in her hands. "Okay," I conceded. "Talk to him. But before you do, I want you to know something." I handed her a copy of the documents I had signed with David. "What is this?" "I transferred the bakery to a holding company. You'll still receive your allowance, but neither you nor Julian will ever be able to sell it or use it as collateral. It's a protective measure I took today, after what I heard." Chloe glanced at the papers, her expression shifting from shock to outrage. "You did this without even talking to me? How could you? It was necessary. If I'm wrong, it won't make a difference. But if I'm right—" I let the sentence hang in the air. She stared at me for a long moment, silent tears now streaming down her face. Then she picked up her phone and dialed Julian. "I need to talk to you. Now. It's urgent." Her voice trembled. "Come to my suite." After hanging up, she turned to me. "I want you to stay, Mom. I want you to hear what he has to say." I nodded, and we waited in tense silence. A few minutes later, there was a knock on the door. Julian walked in with that charming smile that had so bewitched my daughter. He wore an impeccable suit, his hair perfectly coiffed, the very picture of an eager groom. His smile faltered when he saw me standing there. "Darling, what's wrong? Shouldn't you be getting ready to—" He stopped when he noticed the tear stains on her face. "What happened? Why are you crying?" Chloe took a deep, shaky breath. "I need to ask you a question, Julian, and I want you to be completely honest with me." Julian shot a look at me, then back at her, visibly uncomfortable. "Of course, my love. Anything. Are you marrying me for love or for the money from my mother's bakery?" The silence that followed was deafening. I watched Julian's face cycle through several emotions in a matter of seconds. Surprise, confusion, calculation, and finally, a mask of feigned outrage. "What kind of question is that?" He moved toward her, trying to take her hands. "Of course I'm marrying you for love. Where did you even get an idea like that?" Chloe pulled away, keeping her distance. "My mother overheard you in your suite with your groomsmen. She said you called me a disgusting sow. that marrying me was just a small price to pay to get your hands on the bakery. Julian glared at me with pure venom, then forced a laugh. And you believed her? Chloe, your mother has never liked me. She's making this up to drive us apart. I'm not making anything up, I replied, my voice steady. I heard every word you said, Julian. Prove it, he challenged, crossing his arms. It's your word against mine. It was then that I remembered. My phone. After hearing the initial conversation, I had fumbled with my phone in the hallway and, acting on pure, panicked instinct, had started recording while they continued to talk. I hadn't even consciously realized I'd done it in the shock of the moment. I pulled out the device and found the audio file. There it was. I pressed play. So pathetic, she actually believes it when I tell her I love her. And her mom? That clueless old bat working day and night at that bakery. She has no idea that in 6 months we're selling the whole thing, and she'll be right back in the gutter where she belongs. Julian's voice filled the room, clear and unmistakable, followed by laughter. And when she starts crying over every little thing, she looks like a beached whale. I stopped the recording. Chloe's face was ashen, her eyes locked on Julian, who looked like he'd seen a ghost. Chloe, I can explain. He started, his voice strained, but she held up a hand, cutting him off. Explain what exactly? How you were planning to use me and then throw me away? How you laughed at me with your friends? It was just stupid locker room talk. The guys were winding me up. I'd had too much to drink. He tried to approach her again, but Chloe flinched back. Don't touch me. Her voice was ice. Were you really going to sell the bakery? Everything my mother built? Everything we worked for? Julian looked from me to her, his face twisting. The mask finally fell away, revealing the coldness I had always suspected lurked beneath the charm. And what's the problem? That bakery could be worth millions in the right hands. You two are so sentimental, clinging to that place like it's something special. It is special, Chloe cried, the pain in her voice now mixed with fury. It's my mother's life. It's my life. Oh, please, Julian scoffed, rolling his eyes. You could have so much more. I was going to give you a life you can't even imagine. With my family's money. What's the difference? Money is money. Chloe grabbed the documents I had given her and threw them at his chest. Read this. My mother transferred everything to a holding company. You will never touch a single cent of our money. Julian snatched the papers, his eyes scanning them rapidly. I saw his expression morph from contempt to comprehension and then to pure shock. He looked at me, livid. You can't do this. I already did, I replied simply. He crumpled the papers and threw them on the floor. This isn't over. I have friends, lawyers. I'll contest this. You can try, I challenged him, but it will be hard to explain to a judge why you deserve access to my family's assets after he hears this recording. His rage turned back to calculation. Ever the strategist, Julian turned to Chloe, his expression softening. Sweetheart, let's just talk, in private. Your mother is putting ideas in your head. What you heard, I can explain it. It was dumb jokes. I was nervous about the wedding. I said stupid things to impress those idiots. Chloe stared at him for a long, agonizing moment. I saw her hands tremble, her chest rising and falling with ragged breaths. I was terrified she would give in, that her love for the man she thought he was would blind her again. Get out of my room, she said finally, her voice low but firm. Chloe, please, get out, she screamed, grabbing a vase from a side table and hurling it in his direction. It shattered against the wall, water and flowers exploding across the floor. Julian flinched back, stunned by her outburst. He shot me a look of pure hatred, then turned back to her. You're going to regret this, he threatened. Both of you will regret this. Then he stormed out, slamming the door behind him. The moment we were alone, Chloe collapsed onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. I rushed to her, holding her as her body shook with grief. My little girl, my baby, my heart. Watching her suffer like this felt like my own soul was being torn to shreds. "I loved him so much, Mom," she cried into my shoulder. "How could he? How did I not see it?" "He was good at lying, honey," I whispered, rocking her like I did when she was a child. "And you're good at seeing the best in people." For nearly half an hour, we stayed like that, on the floor of that hotel suite, a $15,000 wedding dress pooled around us, crushed flowers, smeared makeup, and shattered dreams everywhere. When her sobs finally subsided, Chloe lifted her swollen face. "What are we going to do now? There are 200 people downstairs waiting for a wedding. We're going to cancel it," I answered pragmatically. "It happens. People will talk for a few weeks, then they'll forget." But I knew it wouldn't be that simple. Julian didn't seem like the kind of man who would accept defeat gracefully. His pride was wounded, and men like him are dangerous when they're humiliated. "I'll ask Brenda to let the guests know. We'll make something up, a sudden illness, whatever." Chloe nodded, wiping her tears. "Let's just get out of here. I don't want to see anyone." I helped her change and pack her things. We only told David what had happened, and he took charge of handling the situation with the vendors and guests. I paid an extra fee to the hotel to ensure their discretion. Money always helps by silence. As we slipped out the back entrance, avoiding the lobby where the first guests were already arriving, Chloe was unrecognizable. Not just because of the lack of makeup and the fancy dress, but because of the hardness I now saw in her eyes. Something had fundamentally changed in her that afternoon. In the car, as I drove us home, she broke the silence. "Thank you, Mom." For saving me from him, I squeezed her hand. "That's what I'm here for, honey, always." What we didn't know then was that Julian would not accept this humiliation quietly. In the days that followed, we would discover just how far he was willing to go for revenge. The morning after the canceled wedding, I was jolted awake by the insistent ringing of my phone. It was David, his voice tense on the other end of the line. "Eleanor, have you been online today?" "No, I just woke up." "Why?" "Julian is posting things, terrible things, about you and Chloe. It's everywhere." I leaped out of bed, scrambling for my tablet. With shaking hands, I pulled up social media. What I saw made my blood run cold. Julian had posted a long, elaborate story claiming he was the victim of a cruel setup by a psychotic mother-in-law who couldn't stand to lose control over her daughter. He alleged that I had manipulated Chloe her entire life, isolating her from relationships to maintain control over her and the bakery. Worse, he had edited the audio I'd recorded, chopping up parts and reordering them to make it seem like he was merely responding to his friend's provocations. The narrative he constructed painted me as a bitter, controlling, and calculating woman, and it was working. The comments were devastating. People were siding with him, calling me a monster, saying Chloe had escaped a marriage that would have only further imprisoned her under my toxic influence. Mom? What's going on? Chloe appeared in my bedroom doorway, her eyes still puffy from the night before. My phone won't stop buzzing. I looked at my daughter, her face still marked by the fresh pain of betrayal, and I hesitated. She was already suffering so much, but hiding this would only make it worse. "Julian is spreading lies about us, honey. He edited the recording. He's twisted everything." Chloe took the tablet from my hands and began to read, her face growing paler with every line. When she got to the comments, silent tears began to fall again. "He's destroying our reputation," I murmured, feeling a wave of helplessness. The bakery, our customers, our suppliers, our friends, they were all seeing this. Julian was flipping the narrative, casting himself as the victim and us as the villains. That same day, we took 3 more hits. A group of protesters appeared in front of Sweet Flourishes with signs calling us abusers and manipulators. 2 major corporate clients who bought our desserts called to cancel their contracts. And worst of all, close friends started to avoid us, with some even sending accusatory messages. "How can people believe him so easily?" Chloe asked, sitting at the kitchen table, staring at a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. They've known us for years. People love a scandal, honey, and Julian knows exactly how to manipulate public opinion. Over the next 10 days, the situation only deteriorated. Julian gave interviews to local blogs and appeared on a popular podcast, weeping as he talked about being duped by a family he had truly loved. Each performance was carefully crafted to seem heartfelt and sincere. Meanwhile, we tried to keep the bakery running, but our customer base had dwindled drastically. Employees started quitting, afraid of being associated with the scandal. Even the bank called us in for a meeting, concerned about the impact on our ability to repay the loan we'd taken out for our recent expansion. Chloe was a wreck. The light had gone out of her eyes. She barely ate. She barely slept. One night, I walked into her room and found her sitting in the dark, looking at old photos of her and Julian. "I was so stupid," she whispered as I sat beside her. All the signs were there. The way he always asked about the bakery's finances, how he only got really interested in me after we started to expand. "You weren't stupid, honey. You were deceived by someone who has made a profession out of it. People think I'm weak, that you control me," she said, looking at me with her red-rimmed eyes. "That's what hurts the most. As if all the work we did together as partners was just some form of abuse on your part." I pulled her into a hug, my heart breaking all over again. Chloe had always been my pride. From the time she was little, she'd shown an interest in baking, learning every recipe, every technique. When I'd finished paying off the house and was able to reinvest, it was her idea to expand into the corporate events market. We worked together as equals despite our age and experience gap. And now Julian was rewriting our entire history. On the 12th day after the canceled wedding, just when we thought things couldn't get any worse, David showed up at our house with alarming news. "Julian has filed a lawsuit against you," he said, placing a stack of papers on the kitchen table. "He's alleging emotional distress, defamation, and breach of contract." "Breach of contract?" I asked, incredulous. "What contract?" "He's claiming there was a verbal agreement to make him a partner in the bakery after the wedding, and that you, Eleanor, deliberately sabotaged everything out of jealousy and a need for control." "That's absurd," I exclaimed. "Absurd but dangerous," David warned. "He's hired Marcus Thorne." My stomach sank. Marcus Thorne was one of the most aggressive lawyers in the city, notorious for turning simple cases into bloody media spectacles. He didn't just represent clients in court, he created public circuses that destroyed reputations. "And there's more," David continued, hesitating. "Brenda, the wedding planner, is siding with him. She's claiming she heard you, Eleanor, plotting to sabotage the wedding weeks in advance." "What?" Chloe shot to her feet, outraged. "That's a lie. Mom worked day and night to plan everything perfectly." "I know," David sighed. "But Julian probably bought her off or threatened her. He has resources and he's willing to use them." That night, after David left, Chloe and I sat in silence on the back porch, watching the stars. The business we had built together was on the line. Our reputation was in tatters, and a threatening lawsuit loomed over our heads. "What are we going to do, Mom?" Chloe finally asked, her voice small in the darkness. I looked at my daughter, and I felt a new resolve harden within me. Julian wanted a war? He would get one. "We're going to fight," I replied, my voice firm. "I didn't build a business from scratch, raise you on my own, and overcome everything we've faced just to give up now." The next day, I called Isabel Vance, a formidable lawyer I'd met years ago at a women's entrepreneurship event. She wasn't cheap, but she had an ironclad reputation and an impressive win rate. Isabel listened to our story, examined the evidence, the original recording, the signed documents, Julian's posts, and nodded grimly. "He's playing dirty, but he's made mistakes," she said, her eyes glinting with determination. "First, the edited recording is easily detectable by any audio expert. Second, his accusations are libelous. Third, he has zero proof of this supposed verbal partnership agreement. But what about the wedding planner?" I asked. "She's lying to support him." "We'll take care of her," Isabel guaranteed. People who can be bought often have a history of being compromised. Leave that to me. Isabel mounted a two-pronged strategy, legal and public. We filed a countersuit for defamation and emotional distress. Simultaneously, she hired a crisis management firm to help us win back public opinion. The next few days were a whirlwind. Isabel got a court order forcing Julian to take down the defamatory posts. He complied, but the damage was done. The communications team advised us not to respond directly to the accusations on social media, but to recenter the narrative on our work. "You have a powerful story," explained Marcia, the communications specialist. "A single mother building a business with her daughter, overcoming adversity. We're going to focus on that, not on his accusations." We followed the plan, posting stories about the bakery's journey, sharing old photos of me and Chloe working together since she was a little girl. Slowly, a few loyal customers began to speak up in our defense, but Julian wasn't giving up. 2 weeks after our countersuit, he launched another attack. He had supposedly found former employees willing to testify that I fostered a toxic work environment and that Chloe was a puppet in my hands. "Who are these former employees?" I asked Isabel, furious. "I've always treated everyone with respect. A Mark Silva and a Patricia Gomez," she replied, checking her notes. A chill went down my spine. Mark had been fired for harassment. Patricia had been caught trying to steal from the cash register. Exactly, Isabel smiled. Julian didn't do his homework. We have documentation on both dismissals, including security footage of Patricia taking money. He just handed us some very valuable ammunition. For the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of hope. Julian was getting desperate, making mistakes. While the legal battle unfolded, Chloe and I fought to keep the bakery afloat. We had lost nearly 40% of our business. We had to lay off 5 employees and drastically cut expenses. Every day was a struggle. Every paid bill was a small victory. One afternoon, as Chloe and I were working in the bakery's kitchen, now with only 3 employees where we once had 15, the door opened. It was Mark, one of our oldest suppliers, whom we hadn't seen since the scandal broke. "Eleanor, Chloe," he said, looking uncomfortable. "Can we talk?" I wiped my hands on my apron, exchanging a worried glance with Chloe. "Of course. Mark, is something wrong?" "Actually, yes." He put a folder on the counter. "I received an offer from Gourmet Delights to become their exclusive supplier. They're offering double what I charge for your orders." Gourmet Delights was our biggest local competitor. The owner, Robert Shaw, had always been a respectful rival, until now. "But you came to tell us before accepting," I concluded, seeing in his eyes that he was torn. "You were my first big clients," he explained. "When I started my organic farm, no one wanted to pay a fair price. You did. It saved my farm." Chloe came over, touching his arm. "Mark, we understand. You have a family to support. If you need to take their offer—" "It's not just that," he interrupted. "Robert came to see me yesterday. When I asked him about the sudden interest in my produce, he confessed that Julian had approached him. He suggested a partnership to, well, his words were, put you out of business for good." My blood ran cold. "Julian is orchestrating a boycott of our suppliers?" Mark nodded. "And your customers, too. He's offering kickbacks to anyone who switches." Robert didn't want to get involved at first, but the pressure is mounting. "Why are you telling us this?" I asked, my suspicion a hard-learned instinct. "Because it's not right," he answered simply. "I don't know what happened between you and that young man, but I've known you two for 10 years. You're honest people, and he's playing dirty." After Mark left, having turned down the offer from Gourmet Delights despite our urging him to take it, Chloe and I sat there, stunned. "He wants to completely destroy us?" I murmured. "All because of a bruised ego," Chloe finished, her voice bitter. "And to think I almost married him. We need to tell Isabel about this," I decided. "This is economic harassment. There has to be something we can do." Isabel listened intently to our account, taking notes. "This is serious," she agreed, "but we need concrete proof. The word of one supplier might not be enough." What if we could get more suppliers to testify? I suggested Mark can't be the only one Julian approached. That would help, Isabel nodded, but it would be even better if we had something in writing or recorded irrefutable proof of his attempted economic sabotage. It was Chloe who came up with the idea. Her eyes, once dull with sadness, now gleamed with a new kind of fire. What if we pretend one of our suppliers took the deal? We could record the conversation when Julian gives him specific instructions. Isabel considered it for a moment, then a slow smile spread across her face. That could work, but we have to be extremely careful. It has to seem natural with no entrapment, and we need to make sure it's legal in our state. The plan began to take shape. Mark agreed to participate. Pretending to accept Julian's proposal, Isabel prepared everything to ensure the recording would be legal and admissible in court. In the meantime, we continued to face the financial fallout. We had to take out a second mortgage on the house to keep the bakery running. I spent sleepless nights poring over spreadsheets, trying to find ways to cut costs without sacrificing quality. One evening, I found Chloe crying in the empty kitchen of the bakery, staring at the nearly bare shelves. "He's winning, isn't he?" She sobbed as I sat beside her. "He's going to destroy us." "No, honey," I said, taking her hands. "He can hurt us, he can wound us, but he will not destroy us." "How are you so sure?" I looked at her hands in mine, hands that had learned to knead and mix and create from such a young age, hands that held the same strength as my own. "Because people like Julian only know how to destroy," I explained. "But we, Chloe, we know how to build, and rebuilding always takes more strength and courage than tearing something down." She hugged me tight, and we stayed that way for a long time. The next morning, we would set our plan in motion. The trap was ready to be sprung. Mark was the perfect bait. As the organic fruit supplier for several establishments in the city, his defection to Gourmet Delights would be a significant blow to our operation. Julian would take the bait. Isabel carefully coached Mark on what he could and could not say to avoid any claim of legal entrapment. He would use a legally approved recording device hidden in his shirt pocket. The meeting would take place in a public cafe where witnesses could confirm it happened. "Remember," Isabel instructed Mark on the morning of the meeting, "you just let him talk. Don't lead, don't suggest. Just listen and confirm the plan was simple." Mark would tell Julian he was considering the exclusivity offer from Gourmet Delights, but wanted to better understand the terms. Specifically, he wanted to know why Robert had mentioned Julian as part of the deal. Chloe and I spent the day at the bakery, feigning normality while our stomachs churned with anxiety. Isabel stayed with us, her phone always at hand, waiting for news. At 3:37 p.m., Mark called. "It's done," he said, his voice shaking with adrenaline. "I got everything." He not only admitted to orchestrating the boycott, but he said things. Well, you'll hear. An hour later, Mark, Isabel, Chloe, and I gathered in the lawyer's office to listen to the recording. The quality was excellent, every word clearly audible. "So, Mr. Shaw mentioned you were behind this offer from Gourmet Delights," Mark's voice began on the recording. "Robert talks too much," Julian replied, his arrogant tone easily recognizable. "But yes, I'm financing part of their expansion in exchange for a few strategic cooperations, like poaching suppliers from Sweet Flourishes." A cold laugh echoed from the recording. "Exactly. That bakery needs to disappear, and with it, the arrogance of those two women. Can I ask why you have such an interest in destroying them? It's personal. Eleanor Hayes humiliated me. She manipulated my fiancé against me. Nobody does that to me and gets away with it. Nobody. I see. And what happens after the bakery closes? Will suppliers like me still have exclusive contracts with Gourmet Delights?" A pause. Then, "Probably not. Robert doesn't have the capital to keep all of you on long term. This is just a means to an end, which would be destroying Eleanor Hayes, of course, making that sow pay for getting in my way. And the daughter? That idiot believed every lie I told her. You're beautiful, Chloe." "You're so special, Chloe." He mimicked in a syrupy voice, then laughed cruelly. So desperate for attention she'd believe any crumb I threw her. But the most pathetic part, Julian continued, was how she pretended not to see. I was only interested in the money. Who would be interested in a whiny, fat girl like her if it wasn't for the cash? Chloe made an audible sound of disgust as she heard those words. I gripped her hand tightly. The conversation continued for a few more minutes, with Julian detailing how he planned to use other suppliers and clients to isolate us completely. When the recording ended, the silence in the office was heavy. Chloe had tears in her eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of pure rage. "Do we have enough?" I asked Isabel. She nodded, a slow, predatory smile spreading across her face. "More than enough." This not only proves malicious economic interference, but it also completely demolishes the narrative he's been building in the media and in court. What do we do now? First, we add this to our lawsuit against him. Second, we use it strategically with the public. Isabel's plan was brilliant. We wouldn't leak the whole recording, which would be cruel to Chloe. Instead, we would release carefully selected, legally cleared snippets to the press, the parts that showed Julian's true intentions without exposing the most vicious insults against my daughter. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The same media outlets that had attacked us were now scrambling to publish the truth. Former clients started reaching out, expressing their support. Social media, once a battlefield where we were under constant attack, was now filled with messages of solidarity. Robert Shaw, the owner of Gourmet Delights, issued a public statement distancing himself from Julian and apologizing for his involvement. "I was manipulated and pressured," he wrote. "Competition should be fair and based on quality, not sabotage." But the final blow came 3 days later, when a major blog published an explosive exposé. 2 of Julian's ex-girlfriends came forward to tell stories eerily similar to ours. Both recounted how he had manipulated them for financial gain, how he had insulted them in private while maintaining a charming prince facade in public. Julian tried to defend himself, claiming the recording was doctored, that he was being persecuted. But it was too late. The tide had turned completely. 2 weeks after the press conference, we received a settlement offer. Julian would drop all charges against us if we dropped ours against him. "He's desperate," Isabel observed. "His image is destroyed. Clients are abandoning his consulting firm. No one wants to be associated with him." "Should we accept?" I asked, looking at Chloe, leaving the decision in her hands. My daughter, who had grown so much through this ordeal, shook her head firmly. "No," she said, her voice quiet but resolute. "He tried to destroy us, not just financially, but emotionally. He wanted me to believe I was unworthy of real love. I want him to face every legal consequence." Isabel smiled, proud. "I completely agree, and with the evidence we have, I can guarantee he will face significant consequences." The case proceeded. 3 months later, the judge delivered the verdict. Julian was found guilty of defamation, malicious interference with business relations, and harassment. He was ordered to pay a substantial sum in damages and issue a public retraction. The bakery began its slow recovery. Customers returned. New contracts were signed. The road ahead was long, but we were back on our feet. One afternoon, as Chloe and I were in the kitchen testing a new recipe, she broke the comfortable silence. "Mom, do you ever wonder, if I had married him, how long it would have taken me to realize the truth?" I looked at my daughter, her face concentrated as she measured ingredients with precision. "I don't know, honey. Maybe days, maybe years. The important thing is that we know now. Sometimes I think I should be grateful you overheard that conversation," she continued, not looking at me. "But other times I feel like I should have trusted you immediately without needing proof." I gently touched her face, turning it toward me. "Chloe, you loved him. Love blinds us sometimes. Don't blame yourself for doubting." She gave a small, sad smile. "I guess I learned the hard way that not everyone deserves our hearts. It's a tough lesson, I agreed. But you survived. We survived. And we came out stronger. That night, after closing up the bakery, I stood alone in the kitchen for a few minutes. I looked around at the ovens where thousands of desserts had been created, at the counters where Chloe learned to mix batter, at the small office where we planned our expansion. Julian had tried to take all of this from us. Not just the business, but our dignity, our reputation, our mother-daughter relationship. He almost succeeded, but in the end, what saved us wasn't just a recording or a legal strategy. It was the unbreakable bond between a mother and her daughter, a connection that no man, no matter how manipulative, could ever completely sever. A year after the almost wedding, as Chloe and I came to call it, our bakery hadn't just survived, it was flourishing. The publicity, ironically, had put us in the spotlight. Our story of resilience against a vengeful con man resonated with many people, especially women. We received invitations to speak at women's entrepreneurship conferences. Chloe, initially reluctant to speak publicly about her experience, gradually found her voice. She began using her story to warn other women about manipulative relationships. The greatest danger, she'd say at her talks, isn't the declared enemy, but the one who presents himself as your biggest fan while plotting your downfall. One evening, after one of those events, a young woman approached Chloe in tears. "Your story saved me," she confessed. "I was about to sign over control of my family's business to my fiancé. After hearing you, I started noticing little red flags I had been ignoring." Moments like that healed something deep within Chloe. Her personal pain was transforming into a purpose. What was once shame was now strength. As for me, I learned my own lessons, the main one being to never underestimate what a mother is capable of to protect her child. The day I heard Julian call my daughter a disgusting sow, something primal awoke in me, a strength I didn't even know I possessed. I also learned about forgiveness. Not for Julian, who never showed any real remorse, but for myself. For months, I tortured myself, wondering if I could have prevented it all, if there were signs I had missed, questions I hadn't asked Isabel, who'd become a close friend, helped me understand that Julian was a seasoned predator. People like him are masters at hiding their true intentions. Sweet Flourishes expanded to a second location. We hired more staff, including 3 women who had lost their jobs during the pandemic. We created a small training program for single mothers, teaching them the basics of baking so they could work from home. One quiet afternoon, as the first batch of pastries came out of the oven and the scent of cinnamon filled the shop, Chloe called me into the office. "Mom, I have something to show you." She opened her laptop and showed me an email. It was from a publisher, inviting us to write a book about our story and the journey of the bakery. "What do you think?" she asked, her eyes shining with excitement. "I think we have a story worth telling," I replied, smiling. We started working on the book that same week. Writing it was a cathartic process. Reliving the painful moments wasn't easy, but there was something liberating about telling our own story, in our own words without distortion or manipulation. The book was published 8 months later. Sweet Revenge, How I Saved My Daughter and Our Business from a Con Man, became a modest success, especially among female entrepreneurs and single mothers. We heard through the grapevine that Julian had left the city after the trial. His consulting firm went bankrupt. His reputation was irreparably stained. He tried to start over in another city, but the internet has a long memory. The last we heard, he was working as a salesman at a used car dealership. One night, after a book launch event, Chloe and I came home exhausted but content. We sat on the porch with cups of tea, watching the stars. "You know what's strange, Mom?" she reflected. "If I had married Julian by conventional standards, I'd be considered a successful woman today. I'd have a handsome, seemingly successful husband. I'd probably live in a big house. And you'd be miserable," I added softly. "Profoundly. You'd be used, privately humiliated, possibly cheated on." She took a sip of her tea. "I've thought a lot about the scripts for success. how we're taught from a young age that marriage is the ultimate goal, especially for women. I nodded, understanding completely. I had absorbed those same values in my youth, feeling like a failure for raising a child alone after her father abandoned us. You know what else I learned from all this? Chloe continued. That true relationships are partnerships, not transactions. Julian saw me as a means to an end. You always saw me as a whole person, worthy of love and respect. Tears welled in my eyes. You have always been my greatest pride, Chloe, from the very first moment. That's why I've decided something, she said, straightening up. Taking on that posture I recognized from when she made important decisions, I'm going to get my master's degree in business management. I want to expand the bakery even further, maybe even to other states. And yes, someday I'll get married, have kids, but it will be because I want to, not because I need validation or because I think it's what I'm supposed to do. I squeezed her hand, my heart overflowing with pride. You'll be incredible at whatever you choose to do. 2 years after that conversation on the porch, Sweet Flourishes had become a chain with 4 locations. Chloe was in her final semester of her master's program, implementing new management strategies that had increased our efficiency by 30%. As for me, I began to gradually step back from the day-to-day operations, trusting Chloe and the talented team we had built. Not for lack of interest, but because I knew it was time to let my daughter fully step into her role as a leader. One particularly busy morning, as the main bakery was bustling with customers, I saw a familiar face walk in. It took me a second to recognize Brenda, the wedding planner who had falsely testified for Julian. She looked nervous, glancing around as if afraid of being thrown out. Chloe was at the register, serving customers with her characteristic smile. When she spotted Brenda, her smile faltered for just a moment. I walked over, curious and a little apprehensive. "Eleanor," Brenda greeted, her voice low. "Chloe, I came to apologize." We exchanged surprised glances. "Julian threatened me," she continued. "He said he would ruin my business if I didn't confirm his story. I had just invested my life savings into my event company, and I was scared." She swallowed hard. "It's no excuse, I know. But I wanted you to know that I am deeply sorry." Chloe looked at me, then back at Brenda. For a moment, I thought she would ask her to leave. Instead, she offered her one of the fresh pastries from the counter. "Thank you for coming," my daughter said simply. That took courage. Brenda accepted the pastry, tears in her eyes. "You've built something incredible here. Something honest. I'm so sorry I helped nearly destroy it." After she left, Chloe turned to me with a sad smile. "Forgiveness is a form of strength too, isn't it?" "One of the hardest forms," I agreed. That small moment of reconciliation seemed to symbolize everything we had been through, and learned Julian tried to destroy us by using our own insecurities against us. He tried to turn Chloe's kindness into weakness and my maternal protection into toxic control. But he failed because he underestimated what is built with true love, whether it's a business, a mother-daughter relationship, or a person's character. Those things can be attacked. They can even be damaged, but they have a resilience that no lie can ever completely destroy. That evening, as we were closing up, I watched my daughter organizing the final details, checking orders for the next day, smiling at the employees as they left. I couldn't help but think back to the day I heard Julian's cruel words. The pain I felt, the rage that consumed me, the fear of losing my daughter to a man who only wanted to use her. In that moment of desperation, I had made a choice to fight for the truth, even knowing it might cost me my daughter's love. It was the hardest decision of my life. Now, seeing Chloe strong, confident, and truly happy, I knew I had made the right one. "What are you thinking about, Mom?" Chloe asked, noticing my contemplative gaze. "About how sometimes the worst moments can lead us to the best places," I answered, smiling, "and about how proud I am of the woman you've become." She hugged me, And in that embrace was our entire story. The love, the pain, the struggle, and finally the victory. Not just over Julian, but over everything he represented. The lies, the manipulation, the belief that love is a weakness to be exploited. We learned the hard way that true love isn't blind. It sees clearly and chooses to love anyway, and that the truth, no matter how painful in the moment, is always the surest way home. Now, if you enjoyed this story, go ahead and click subscribe and tell me in the comments which part had your jaw on the floor. Oh, and don't forget to become a member to get access to exclusive videos. I don't post here, I'll be waiting for you there.